Okay, good afternoon, everyone. We will just wait for a few more minutes, maybe about 2 to 3 more minutes. I can see that we have about 46 people on our session now, so we'll give people more time. The session on the main stage just ended. So good afternoon, let's start. So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us in this panel. So just a few reminders, please do introduce yourselves in the chat box. We love to know who's here with us on the panel and let us know where you're logging in from. And you can also share your questions and your comments in the chat. It'd be great to please include your name and your organization when you ask a question so that we can follow up with you if we need to. Okay, so hi, my name is Terri Jayme-Mora. I'm the country representative for Ashoka Philippines, and I'll be the panel facilitator for today. Our panel is entitled Overcoming Systemic Challenges in Women's Social Entrepreneurship. Ashoka and S&P Global decided to embark on this research, which you heard about earlier in the main stage, to hopefully get a better understanding of the challenges that women social entrepreneurs face, particularly in the context of our region in ASEAN. And through the research and the interviews, it became clear that women social entrepreneurs are carrying this dual burden of first having to overcome the challenges that come with being a woman in our society today, and then second, the challenges of being a woman entrepreneur or social innovator. And for me, as a mother of a very strong-willed 5-year-old daughter, this is a very, very personal matter for me because I wonder what are the realities and the obstacles that she will have to face as she grows up, and what can I do as a mother, what can I do as a citizen and as a leader of an organization to address those systemic challenges. So we're grateful to have the opportunity today to hear from our panelists who are all women leaders with insights and experiences that span across different countries in ASEAN. And allow me now to introduce them. So first, we have Ibu Agustina Erni. She's the Deputy Head for Gender and Equality at the Ministry of Women Empowerment and Child Protection in Indonesia. Hello, Ibu Agustina. Next, we have Amina. Hello. We have Amina Evangelista Swanepoel. She's the founder of Roots of Health and is an Ashoka Fellow from the Philippines. Welcome,
Hello.
Amina.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. And then we have Nattaya Boonpakdee, who is a founder of Women's Health Advocacy Foundation and is an Ashoka Fellow from Thailand.
Hello, everyone.
And finally, we have Ibu Septi Peni, founder of Ibu Professional, and she's also an Ashoka Fellow from Indonesia.
Hi, everyone.
So thank you, ladies, for joining us today. I'd like to start with a very simple question for each of you. And that would be, if you had to choose only 3 words to describe the journey and the life of a woman social entrepreneur, what would those 3 words be? And maybe I will start with Nattaya.
Thank you, Terri. Well, actually, it's not an easy question at all. I spent some time thinking about it, and I came up with the three words. I call it triple P. The first P is persistent. You have to be tough enough to continue to endure over the prolonged period. You know, is a long time job. And the second P is practicality. I think we need to provide people with the solution that they can take action easily, can act easily and make changes by themselves. The third P is peer. You need friends, you need network, you need a community or a movement to work together, because in many cases the changes that we want to see is a very, very complex issue. So we alone cannot do it. Yeah.
How about you, Ibu Septi? What are the three words?
Okay, Terri, thank you. I have three magic words in our community that it's describe the social entrepreneur, women social entrepreneur. It's about empowerment. The first is empowerment, and the second is change, and the third is impact. I think it's powerful in my community to every women have right to empowerment themselves, and after that they will change the challenges in border in our community, and after that give the impact and scale up the impact. Thank you.
Next, maybe Ibu Agustina.
Okay, thank you.
Three words.
Okay, first is women as a socialpreneur need to keep learning. Every day, every time we have to learn something as a woman. Learn, and then the second is the same, empower. So by doing more learning, you can empower yourself and empower other people to finally get a success. This is a three words for me to be a woman. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, we have Amina.
So my three words to describe the this process and living this life: committed. You also must be determined. And one of my favorites is empathy, and having empathy in our relationships and in everything we do. And as was noted, on the main stage, this is really something that that women social entrepreneurs and women leaders are known for being very strong in, and it's something that I think is so important.
Thank you, Amina, and thank you everyone for sharing those three words. And maybe I'll stay with you, Amina, for the next question, which I'd like to ask you and Ibu Septi and Nattaya to answer. If you could spend just a few minutes on sharing with us, based on your work with local communities in the Philippines and on your own personal experience as a woman social entrepreneur, what do you feel are these main systemic challenges that women face in the Philippines?
Sure. Well, I think that the two major systemic challenges in the Philippines that affect women social entrepreneurs and women generally are the patriarchy and the related cultural expectations that are associated with that, and a lack of adequate sexual and reproductive health. Now, these challenges were challenges that I faced also. Thankfully, I was able to complete my education, not have an unplanned teen pregnancy, and am able to do the advocacy that I'm working on. But these things are systemic challenges that really make it very difficult for Filipinas to be able to complete their schooling and to achieve their full potentials. With the patriarchy, you know, the Philippine culture is so male-centric, and though many women are educated and they're empowered, there's always the expectation that they will take care of their parents. When they get married or coupled, they'll take care of their partner, they'll take care of their children, and thus women really do dual work. They often have to be income earners for the family, but then they're also expected to be taking care of their families as well as their extended families. And you know, there are many women in the workforce, but when you look at the leadership of organizations, you don't really see women as much. Women are in the minority. And you know, there aren't as many females, women entrepreneurs as there are men. And when you look at board of trustee role in companies, in corporations, nonprofits within the government, you know, you don't often see women at the very highest levels of leadership. And I think that you know, that stems from that issue. And then regarding the lack of sexual and reproductive health support, because there's no sexuality education in schools and easy access to contraception, the Philippines has one of the highest teen pregnancy rates in ASEAN and even the world, actually. And when girls get pregnant when they're only 13 years old or 14, they're forced to drop out of school in order to take care of their baby. And they're not usually able to go back to school. So this adds a burden to families that are already living in poverty, and it strengthens this vicious cycle of poor families having limited education and limited options for livelihood and getting out of poverty. So, you know, of course, there are female social entrepreneurs and leaders, but these systemic challenges really stand in the way of so many people being able to achieve their highest potentials. And I really wish that we could keep addressing these issues.
Thanks, Amina. And I think that, you know, we will move on with that same question to Nattaya, because I think that based on you both are dealing with very similar fields, and I'd love to hear what that situation is like in Thailand and what you feel the systemic challenges are there.
Thank you, Terri. Well, actually, when I listen to Amina, the situation is, I would say, exactly the same here for Thailand. Even though we can push for a deal law on Adolescent Pregnancy Act, which gives the right to education and learning about sexuality and reproductive health for all adolescent age less than 10 to 20, and the pregnant student has the right to education in all school settings in Thailand. But still, because of the culture of patriarchy and other related oppression culture, we still have the same problem as happened in the Philippines. And I think for us as women entrepreneurs working on in this field, we face kind of cultural challenges in terms of in our context, the seniority culture is still very, very strong. When I was younger than this, and I'm not a doctor or a nurse or health professionals, but working on the sexual and reproductive health issues, on unplanned pregnancy, on safe abortion, it's really difficult for me to push the issue forward. And I think that this plus the patriarchy culture made it even harder for women to work in this field and to be a pioneer in this field. I observed that when a male doctor appear on the television and talking about safe abortion, people listen to him more than us as a woman and not a doctor, speak up on this, or even the women who face this problem themselves. So I think that this is still a challenge for us in Thailand. And is the answer that even though we have a very good reproductive rights bill for the adolescent, we still have the problem.
Thank you, Nattaya. And now maybe ask same question for Ibu Septi, your perspectives on the systemic challenges that you see for women social entrepreneurs in Indonesia.
Okay, thank you, Terri. Based on my experience, I became acutely aware of the society's perception of housewives. The difference in status between working mom and housewives will be a systemic challenge. I think it's not about status, but it's the role and work area of women. In 1995, when I got married, I feel that housewives were marginalized people. In Indonesia, housewives are often considered as unemployed, no job, no income. Women who become housewives are not proud to themselves. I think this condition is very dangerous for a nation because every married woman automatically becomes a housewife. But they are not proud. Just take it for granted. There will be many women who don't want to learn how to educate the children properly, and they don't know how to manage the family properly. I think both of them are basic knowledge that must be possessed by a mother before they enter the public area. In my humble opinion, the family is the smallest community in a country that must be strengthened. A mother is a center of civilization. I do believe that educating a woman means educating one generation. The family is the nation pillar. If the pillars are not strong, it can destroy the nation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ibu Septi. So listening to the three of you share so far, it resonates, and I'm sitting here in the Philippines, and definitely what you're describing for Indonesia and Thailand is something that is relevant for here, and what you're describing, Ibu Septi, of these perceptions and I guess stereotypes around housewives and the marginalization of it is a huge problem. And how do we deal with these issues that seem so large, and this question of this culture of patriarchy? And I think in discussions that we have about systemic challenges that women face, I've been in several discussions where we go deep into these challenges, and there's always this question of what can we do? And so I'd like to touch a bit on that and turn to Ibu Agustina, because with your experience in government, so part of the Ministry of Women Empowerment in Indonesia, what role can government play in addressing these systemic barriers that we're hearing about today? Are there specific models that you've seen which have been effective that you can share?
Okay, thank you, Terri. Yeah, from the three panel, they are discussing about the role of women both in the family and in public, because sometimes women have many roles as a mother, as a wife, and also as an employee, as a boss, many roles, and how we can balance those things. And actually, and I'm sure that it's also happened in other countries, not just in Indonesia. In Indonesia, we have a family planning board. In this example, for example, for the family planning, they have a program for a new generation, for teenager. So they will provide the teenager how to be, when they learn how to become, when they have a family. They learn about the sexual education, and this is to help them to protect themselves from, for example, early marriage. This is our program, And for the other programs is talking about from Bu Septi about the role of housewife. Actually, in this new development program, we have a family development index. So now we not just talk about the women, but women as part of the family. So we have to make a family stronger in many aspects, not just social aspect, health, economy. So we want to build, because education starts from the family, and family consists of children, father, mother. Now we want to build a good relation among them. And this become our national target to increase the development family index. And of course, this index is related to not just one ministries, but many other districts like education is also responsible for this index, health, Ministry of Health, and our also ministry have responsible to achieve this development index. And for as the panelists mentioned, that women also have a reproductive role. No, we also have policy regulation for every office, government office should provide daycare in their office and also for breastfeeding. So it will help the young couple or young mother, if they have a problem for the daycare, or who will take care of the children in the at home, they can bring to the office. And also the place for breastfeeding. Every office government should have this kind of service for women. And also we give them an award every 2 years. We have an award for the office of government office that provide breastfeeding and also daycare for their employee. And this is also we not just in central, but also in regional level. This is what we have done to help the mother and family to take care their children, or to do their role as a mother and also as an employee. Thank you, Terri.
Thank you, Ibu Agustina. So I'd like to open it up to the panelists. Is there anything that you've heard from the different sharings that we've had now that resonates with you, or you see maybe potential areas of working together, commonalities?
Terri, if I could just say that,
Okay.
I feel really sad because Nattaya, I've always looked at Thailand as the better country for sexual and reproductive health and rights. And when I hear you say that it's the same as in the Philippines, it makes me feel so sad. But I was thinking, in response to what Ibu Septi and Ibu Agustina were saying, I think that now this period that we are in with COVID and with most countries being under lockdown and more people spending most of their time at home, that maybe this could be an opportunity for us to be able to discuss more with our families, with our partners, about the expectations on women and these challenges that we have. And I was really inspired by Ibu Agustina saying to have to discuss with families, because this is a great conversation to even start with your children, even if they're still really young, talking about the responsibilities that the parents have, or that if in the Philippines, even if you're not married, you're still living with a family usually, and you have responsibilities. But just discussing with all the family members about what your responsibilities are, and then the housework and the childcare work that is usually expected to be done by the women. Maybe this could be a good time to have a conversation with other family members, with the men, with the other young children, to try to just tackle in the family unit some of these prejudices or expectations that are so ingrained from early on, because then as they grow up, they won't have that expectation, hopefully, and the family unit is the smallest unit, but then it can grow out from there. So I think that would be something that we could try to do to try to address the issues.
Thank you, Amina. Ibu Septi, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yes. I'm very interested in what Nattaya and Amina have done. There are some similarities that I see. That the first, we are a woman community base. The second, we provide services for stronger and healthier families. And the third, we have a potential collaboration for women in ASEAN. We have a similar culture. Ibu professional maybe can be a support system to strengthen capacity building of women as mother. And roots of health, and women health advocacy from Nattaya provide services for stronger and healthier women in their families. It's very fantastic.
I just want to add, because I saw one question from our audience, and I think that I believe that if we can start from the family, then we have a chance to transform the next generation. But I think that I look at some of the country in Scandinavian countries, and I think that we need some policy. We need to release women from family burden in some way. For example, in the workplace, if we can push for the family friendly workplace that allow men and women to take equal responsibility for their family, for their children, I think that the double burden that the women nowadays still have to handle will be released somehow, and she can have more free time to learning, or open to explore for more opportunity for herself, or to be more independent by herself. And I think that we need to release that condition in terms of the work, in terms of the family burden as well. I think that we need to balance somehow when we say that we should start from the family.
Thank you, Nattaya. And so I'll read that question that we have from the audience, and it's and believe it or not, we have 10 minutes left in this panel. How did it go by so quickly? But I think it's a great question to end on. And Nattaya started out, and if any of the panelists would like to address it. So it's from Margot. From your experience, what have you seen as the factors or initiatives that have really moved the needle in empowering women and equalizing the playing field and the opportunities? Because perhaps that's what should then be incorporated into our infrastructure policies to affect real systemic change. And as Nattaya mentioned, so perhaps this is around, the link or the role that women have to play in what is perceived to be a family structure. So are there any other responses to this?
I think that there have been a lot of new legislation that helps support, gives support to women so that they can, like, for example, in the Philippines, we have the extended maternity leave law now, so that women have more time after they and are protected. Their jobs are protected, so presumably they can go back. What Ibu Agustina was talking about in Indonesia with having businesses have daycare, I think that's something that could really help, because I hate to keep talking about the childcare aspect, but that is such a big challenge for women who are trying to work. And so having an opportunity within the workplace to have other help for the childcare, I think is something that will really move the needle forward. But there was a comment that that unfortunately, even with some of this legislation, it can help theoretically, but a lot of businesses still view it as quite negative, and it might be a reason why they won't hire someone who they know is pregnant or is of childbearing age. But you know, I think that there are programs like with Ashoka doing youth work with young people to introduce the idea of entrepreneurship at an earlier age, introduce the idea of empathy, and encouraging young people to be looking at their communities to see what they can do. I think those kinds of programs are also helpful. And I think that corporations that are interested could you know, invest in programs like that are like the outreach programs, because I think those really can make a big difference.
Thank you, Amina. Ibu Agustina or Ibu Septi? Yes.
Okay, Terri, yeah. Terri, maybe I want to add some information from Indonesia. Actually, we work together with the CSO and also other community organization in Indonesia. Maybe Bu Septi also already know about Kapal Perempuan, Peka. They educate rural women. So they have a school for women. This is kind of informal school. In this school, they learn how about reproductive health, about gender relation, about how to express yourself. So they are able to express what they need, what their aspiration. And the thing that when I go to several regions, I found one place have a school for women. And at that time, the partner, their husband, also want to go to school. So they have the school for father. And this is I think this is very useful, because actually the member of the family has to learn something, especially in this kind of changes. For example, the COVID pandemic, both men and women should learn something. They have to change. And from what we learned so far, when I joined the webinar, actually the women have more easy to adapt with the COVID instead of the men. I don't know if this is right or not, but how they change the women is, for example, when their economy is impacted by the pandemic, they try to struggle, they try everything to make money, and sometimes the husband have because of the economic the impact, then they become retired or impact by the what you call not work anymore. Then the women take the lead of the economic of the family. And in some area, when I discuss with the CSO who has done a school for father, and they tell to us, if they have a good communication between men and husband and the wife, they can overcome this pandemic smoothly, other than there is no communication or no bad communication between these two partner. This is what we learned so far. Thank you, Terri.
Thank you, Ibu Agustina. Ibu Septi, do you have anything to add?
Yes, I feel would be the most important to item, the most important and concrete action that individual or organization can take to break down these barriers. The first is know your challenges. I'm driving change to break these gender barriers after having personally experienced it in my life. When I gave up my career to become a housewife, I became acutely aware of the society's perception of housewives. I saw that these women were viewed as just housewives and considered unimportant. I also point out that there was even a dichotomy between working mom and a housewife. And the second is change the narrative. I was then inspired to see this narrative. There are no more housewife and working mom. Every mother is a working mom, one choosing to work in the public area and the other choosing to work in the domestic area. Both are entitled to be chosen by women happily. And then I highlight how much value women bring to families and the community to as well. Yeah? I set up the Ibu Professional to enable Indonesia women to become more self-sufficient by getting them actively involved in their getting the children's early education. By teaching them easy educational methods, our community aims to enhance the role of mothers in the family and community. I believe this program can improve the self-esteem of housewives who have long been socially undervalued. My vision is to change the stigma of women being viewed just a housewife. Thank you.
Thank you, Ibu Septi. So listening to all your responses and the comments as well on the chat, we have one audience member who was saying that it seems that what we're describing as systemic challenges are in fact cultural, and that's why there's so much resistance to changing women's role in society. And as I look at the different pieces of your work and reflecting on what role this idea of changing a narrative, because it's if this is a cultural shift that we need to have, and this idea of changing a narrative, and for all of us that are coming here with different organizations, coming from different backgrounds, trying to understand what part we play in reinforcing those cultural norms. Maybe in my role as a mother, as a family member, how can I challenge those cultural norms, and as an organization as well, or my role maybe in government. So this is really fascinating to hear. We have a few minutes left, and I'll just take one more question from the audience. We have a question here from Samantha from PhilDev Foundation. So her question is, I currently work with social enterprises. Many are led by women and currently tasked to provide learning opportunities for SEs. My question is, given the challenges you have mentioned, what kind of skills do we as incubators and accelerators, what can we impart to women entrepreneurs? And I think this is a good question because we have a lot of people from the social enterprise and social innovation space here that are supporting women social entrepreneurs. If any of you would like to respond.
I think that as a woman, in this sort of patriarchy world, we need the skill to always analyze the power in the context that we live in. We have this, if we have this power analysis skill, we can identify what sorts of power that we need, and to help us stronger and be in a stronger position to pursue the change that we want to see.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any last thoughts as we have 3 minutes left?
I wanted to add, Terri, to that. I think this is not necessarily a skill, but I think that it would be great if incubators and accelerators in mentoring social entrepreneurs and just note and talk about the idea that it's okay to ask for help and that you should have help, because I think that the qualities that women entrepreneurs have and social entrepreneurs, they're driven, they do everything, they work very, very hard, and it's so easy to get burnt out. and to not be able to do everything that you want because you're trying to do too much. So I think that in these kinds of programs that are focused on women social entrepreneurs or social entrepreneurs in general, that a discussion about wellness and expectations and how much you can really push yourself versus trying to get help, whether it's from a partner or your staff or family, just making it so that that's expected and understood rather than something that people hide and are kind of ashamed about.
Thank you, Amina. Yes, Ibu Septi.
Yeah, I think there is no scale if without the best practice. Yes, the best practice, and we have to give the best practice for us in the best moral character, the best performance characters. And I think for things to change, I must change first. This is our tagline to make other women social entrepreneur in my community. They see the best practice in the other woman.
Thank you.
Okay.
So we have a minute left, or we might get cut off abruptly. But I just like to take this chance to thank all of you, your panelists, for your time and your sharing here. And I hope we'll find a way to continue this conversation. And we're taking note as well of the questions and the comments in the chats, so we can get back to the participants that posted these, and we'll follow up with you speakers. So we'll be taking a short break and then for 5 minutes, and then we'll ask everybody to go onto the main stage again for the next part of the program. But thank you so much, everybody, for joining us.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. Have a nice day. Stay healthy.